I mean, she had cancer. She had breast cancer, and it came back as stage 4. So she was not only fighting for herself, she was fighting for everyone around her. So she never stopped. She might have had a couple of down points in time, but she always lifted herself back up, and in essence was able to help lift everyone else around her up during that process too.
Put that coffee down.
I'm not here to waste your time, okay? I certainly hope you're not here to waste mine. So I'm going to keep this short.
Helen, we're both in sales. Let me tell you why I suck as a salesman.
The most valuable commodity I know of is information. Wouldn't you agree?
Coffee's for closers only.
Well, hello there, friend. Welcome back to the Behind Your Back podcast with me, Bradley Hartman, founder and CEO of the Behind Your Back sales company, where it's our mission to help you sell more, faster, at higher margins, and have more fun doing it. As for this podcast, well, we're going to focus on leadership, personal productivity, time management, and the craft of selling in the construction industry. Now, this episode is brought to you by our friends at Capital One Trade Credit. If you are interested in growing sales and increasing cash flow while decreasing risk at the same time, yeah, that's right, more sales, less risk, same time. And you get to do all of this on an incredible digital platform that makes it easier for your best customers to buy from you. I know, sounds amazing. Sounds amazing, doesn't it? Well, you can learn more to see exactly how amazing it is at Capital One Trade Credit. Well, we will start off today's podcast just a little bit different than we have with some other guests, because this is a very special episode. As you will hear, the person in question, I think, really contributed to a lot of people's lives, them personally and professionally, and enriched them in a unique way that I think everyone listening here will be wise to emulate. And with that in mind, we're going to start off. And here's a few things that people who worked with this individual, this is what they said about her. Donnie Wilson said, "She gave the little people a voice. She knew how to make people feel appreciated and equal. She took the time to get to know her employees on a personal level. She saw potential in me when no one else did." Chris Peters said, "Her support and confidence in me both inspired and motivated me to do better." I believe that is the definition of leadership. Ann Birch said, "When I think of her, I think believe in yourself and grow beyond your responsibilities." Benita Atwell would share this. "With my father being on dialysis, she would always ask how he was doing, even when she herself wasn't feeling the greatest. She was always thinking of others." Janine Dodge, she said, "I was taught to try and put others first. She exemplified this by always thinking of others first and always did it with a smile on her face." Daryl Conklin, "What I will always remember about her is that she was always a great leader in the face of adversity, being strong for all of us and having a great sense of humor." Sam Robinson said, "She had become family to me. I will continue to strive to be what she could see in me." And Ryan Rennells said, "She has made me a better person. The things I have taken away from our time together are paramount to who I am now and how I will lead going forward. Her best advice to me was be present. That advice is something I place a lot of attention on now, and I strive to improve upon it every day." So Sam Robinson and Ryan Rennells, not Ryan Reynolds. No, different. This would be a different kind of podcast if we had Ryan Reynolds. But Ryan, if you listen, call me. Anyway, Sam Robinson, Ryan Reynolds. We're going to come back to those names here in a minute. But who were all these statements about? Who is this person? Who is this leader that all these people described? That person is Miss Kate Whittemore. She was the president and CEO of Home Central, 3 stores located in upstate New York. Kate was 39 years old when she passed away on Tuesday, July 20th, 2021. She is survived by her parents, her husband Ben, 2 sons, Colton and William, and her daughter, Quinn. Now, Kate graduated from Cornell University with a bachelor's degree in rural sociology. Why? Because, hey, sociology can't just stay in the urban centers. It's got to go rural as well. I can only imagine rural sociology was fantastic. Probably leads into the fact that she also owned a farm. This is what you need to know about Kate. Not only did she grow into and run second generation lumber building material dealer, 3 locations, she also, with her family, ran a farm. Way too much work. One of those is a full-time job. 2 of them is probably all you need to know about Kate. Now, Kate was the only child of Aaron Goen, the standing patriarch of Home Central. And although Kate grew up in the stores, she held an active role within the company since 2005. And as part of Aaron's succession planning, she took on an ever-increasing role within the company and the communities as the years went on. Now, Kate always brought a unique perspective and different ideas and solutions to the business. And this forced her team to critically rethink the biases and habits existing within the organization. So Kate was a fantastic leader. I met Kate, this was probably sometime in 2019, shortly after my wife began her own breast cancer journey, and therefore our entire family began our journey with her. She reached out to me through Instagram and said she listened to the podcast and heard some of what was going on and to offer some advice and support and a sense of humor about what was going on. And we connected immediately in ways that I think social media really allows for, through Instagram and texting and some emails and stuff. Really got to know one another and really came to value kind of her opinion and her support. And we're able to kind of go back and forth on that throughout the years. And then when her cancer came back, we stayed in contact even more throughout the remainder of her time. So it was with this context that we decided we wanted to do an episode to honor her memory and share some of the leadership principles and the type of leader and person that Kate was. And joining me on the show here to talk about Kate was Ryan Rennells and Sam Robinson. Ryan is the general manager and Sam is the office manager of Home Central. And I think all 3 of us kind of were doing the same thing, which is, yes, we absolutely should. There's an audience out here who could certainly learn from her legacy and her leadership, yet we didn't really want to do it. Knew that we would probably struggle to get through it without crying, which I think we did okay, but it wasn't easy. We hung in there for the most part, but we knew it was important and it was worth the effort. So it took us some time to kind of gather our thoughts to make sure we were prepared, to make sure we were thoughtful, to make sure we were going to do it right, because Kate certainly deserves that. So Sam Robinson, as I said, he's the office manager at Home Central, been there over 12 years. He earned his undergrad at State University of New York College at Cortland. That's right, SUNY Cortland. Mascot, the Red Dragons. Love it. Got to go there. Worked for a bit at 84 Lumber and then moved on to Home Central. As for Ryan Rennells, he's the general manager. He was also the North American Hardware and Paint Association, the NHPA, 2020 Retailer of the Year, honoring the next generation of business leaders under the age of 35. So congrats to him. And as you'll hear, he's a very thoughtful, hardworking guy. So Ryan, Sam, and I got together and did our best to share some of the best leadership principles, managerial principles, but also just say the most human principles on how to be someone that you want to be around, someone you want to have as a friend, someone to support you that makes you a better person. And I believe Kate checks the box on all that. So without further ado, please enjoy my conversation with Ryan Rennells, Sam Robinson, as we talk about the legacy of Kate Whittemore of Home Central. So Mr. Ryan Rennells, Sam Robinson, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us.
You bet. I think we shared the same sentiment, kind of talking about and getting ready for this episode and going back and forth, is that I've often found some of the more important things that I've done in my life, there had been a fear and like a Heisman-like rejection of me doing that for a long time. And this is one that I've been thinking about for a long time in a way that we could honor Kate and tell a story that was, I think, deserving of her. So I think maybe where we'll just start is I'm going to run through a timeline that you guys lived through that for me was just absolutely stunning. But I had connected with Kate back in 2016, back when kind of her breast cancer journey and my wife's really coincided around the same time. And she had reached out to like help support us. And I had gone back and forth a couple times before I realized that she was also going through her own journey, which I think says a lot. We really bonded over that. And then, by the grace of God, for my wife and for Kate, they both got better. February of 20, you learn that Kate's cancer's returned. A month later, due to fire, you lose one of your 3 locations. And then a month after that, COVID hits. Maybe let's just start talking about resilience and how Kate, as an owner and as a leader, and along with you two and the rest of your team, how were you able just to kind of have a sense of hope through what had to be like every day? There's just more and more news that just had to be a gut punch. How did you guys manage to see hope through everything you were going through at that time?
Well, without good leadership, without leadership that really cares about its people, I don't know as if we would have recovered and built back as well as we did. A tribute to Kate there. I think in a lot of ways we fought back as hard against adversity as we did to do it for her. So, we were really in some dark moments where you didn't see the hope in people's eyes. So we went from the news of Kate, and 1 week later, our second largest store burned down. We made the decision right then and there, okay, we're going to move all of the staff from that location to another location. Yeah. And so we're duplicating every role within the building. Everybody is elbow to elbow. It's uncomfortable. This isn't normal, but we're going to find a way to get through it. Yeah. And everybody at that point was beyond deflated. We're a big family that extends to our customers. We're a huge community, and everybody was feeling it. You could cut the tension with a knife, and that's just how it was for a while. And then a few weeks later, COVID hits, and now we're trying to mitigate. How do you operate a location with twice the people right next to each other, but still social distance?
Keep them all 6 feet apart.
Yeah, and
right.
To Kate's credit, it was never in her mind that we would ever lay anybody off. Everybody's going to have jobs through this. We don't know how. We'll figure it out along the way, but everybody's going to be taken care of while we rebuild. Again, regardless of any type of organization, you could be a business in this industry, you could be any group or a country, it doesn't matter. When you have leadership that cares about their people and makes decisions thinking about their people first, you can tell. And that makes a difference. And so I credit that to our team's ability to be able to overcome.
Sam, how would you describe Kate's attitude? Because I can imagine just for you gentlemen, you are experiencing many of these things, just as she is. And yet she's also really taking a look at knowing exactly what it takes to go through breast cancer and come out the other side. And now this feeling of I'm going back in. But what did you guys see on a day-to-day basis at the yards? What was her attitude like?
She was a caring fighter, was what she was. She cared for the employees. She cared for the business. She cared for the community, everyone in it. Her decisions were largely based around all of that. What's best for the employees, what's best for the community. How do we keep the business growing and going while at the same time fighting for her own life, in essence. I mean, she had cancer. She had breast cancer, and it came back at stage 4. So she was not only fighting for herself, she was fighting for everyone around her. So she never stopped. She might have had a couple of down points in time, but she always lifted herself back up and in essence was able to help lift everyone else around her up during that process too.
She wasn't afraid to show her vulnerability. She was very real in that way. And the way she came across to the team, to everybody, was like a family member.
It was very sincere.
Yeah.
Very honest and humbling, but also at the same time, she was still your boss. And she had the personality that if we're going to do it, we're going to do it right. So you would do the right thing, but also at the same time, you could tell that she cared about you in the process as well. So,
yeah, Ryan, when you say that she showed her vulnerabilities, I think this is something that I know firsthand. We've had conversations with several of some of the executive leaders that we work with, in that you have vulnerability and you have trust. And too often we think, well, yeah, until I earn the trust of these individuals, I'm not going to be vulnerable. And I think one of the a paradox of leadership is if you're vulnerable first, you earn trust faster. There's probably some gender differences, I think, in general that I won't speak to because I'm not nearly knowledgeable enough, but I have hunches on them. How did she go about kind of showing that she was vulnerable in a time when one could argue you have to have unwavering belief in whatever you can't do is can't be vulnerable in this situation? And yet she did, and obviously was extremely impactful and powerful for you.
Yeah, I think in her own way, I would say it was just a part of who she was before or after cancer. She would, even before cancer, she would say, these are the things I'm not good at. These are the things that I know something about. This is how I'm feeling about any subject. When it moved towards when she was diagnosed with cancer, she was very open about it. She talked about how scary it was and the impact on her family and her husband and 3 kids. There's a lot there, and to be completely open about everything, but to still say, we're going to keep pushing. We're not going to stop. We're going to keep going. I can't think of another thing more inspirational than that. Everything's falling apart around us, but we're going to keep grinding towards these goals, and we're not going to stop.
Right.
And that's really an embodiment of her mindset and her character. She didn't let those things stop her, and it inspired others to not only share their vulnerabilities. Hey, I'm not so good at this part of the business. You felt safe to be able to say that. And when you're in a team where it's okay to discuss things like that, you help each other get better at your weaknesses. And having a leader that is open like that allows for that type of growth.
Yes, Sam, let me ask you this question. Both you guys had kind of mentioned how intentional and consistent Kate was being people first. Yet it's not uncommon for me to be around folks and see them look at certain departments and say, it'd probably just either to lay these people off, or they're doing things that are obviously not people first, yet in their mind, they're not saying, oh, well, that's because of our people second culture. People come after profits, right? They might say things, well, hey, our number one job is to maximize the value for shareholders. Mm-hmm. Now, that may or may not be people first, but there are some very specific instances where it's not. Maybe can you give us some real specific examples about where you're saying, this is what I mean. She could have taken this path, which would have indicated this is a good business choice and it's better for the overall value and maybe saved money, but it would not have been people first. And this is what she time and time again didn't do to prove this is more than just a tagline or an espoused value. It's something she lived by. Sam, anything comes to mind on how she really demonstrated a people-first culture?
She was more interested in trying to grow the person than to just push them to the side because they're not doing good enough. If, for instance, the Vestal fire was a perfect example. She took everyone in when we had no place for them to go. We could use a little bit of help. We could use a couple of people's help probably in a week ago, but then we're adding about a dozen people to a store that's already got probably about as many as we should have had anyway. So you're trying to fit those people in, but then if somebody's not doing good in a single department, she was more interested in how do we make them grow? How do we teach them? How do we get them to a better place to grow the department and grow them and have a more knowledgeable staff in the long run? And somebody that we're not constantly replacing an individual in a department, and therefore the customer base has a new face every time they come in too. She was more interested in seeing people become better than they are or better than they were in a way that would help rise all the people and the business at the same time.
Ryan, you had shared with me that Kate was always recommending videos and webinars and podcasts to the staff. How would she do that?
Every which way she could. She was unrelenting. She doesn't stop. She's always pushing to grow everybody. And so it didn't matter whether it was a webinar here, Bradley Hartman's podcast there. She might tell you just informally. She might email you a few links here or there. You know, it was a nonstop barrage of look at all this content. You know,
the library.
The library, the whole bit. It was a unique day where you didn't hear from Kate about something that you should be checking out to expand your knowledge. Somewhere. Exactly. Yeah. And it was phenomenal. And we're still looking for the bugs in my office here. We're pretty sure you're sourcing content. It's uncanny. She says you've got to listen to Bradley Hartman's podcast. It's uncanny how relatable he is to everything we're going through every day. And it was, and to your credit, it's a wonderful program you have. But she was spot on. We'd be having these conversations about how to train the outside salespeople or how to bolster the entire program or whatever we were talking about. It didn't matter. And then we'd tune into you, and that's what you're talking about. You know, it was uncanny. Anyways, she really did a good job within that of getting people to open their mind to different things. Because I think as an industry, we can be a bunch of meatheads where we're in our lane and we're not moving. We have habits and cultures and customs. And she was always pushing for us to think outside that box and to get a new perspective on things.
The way we always did it was not good enough. There had to be a reason, and it had to be a good reason, or else we had to figure out a way to make it better. And that was all parts of the business. The AR was a perfect example of that. You know, we had done AR for years where we had just kind of gone the way that we had always done. And she said, well, let's make it better. So we sat down, we started making an AR log where we'd keep track of all the phone calls and all the communications with each customer. We'd go through the list every month and find out who was behind, start calling on those customers more often and working with them and getting in touch with them, having more of a presence in their business. And as a result of that, our AR has never been better.
Yeah.
So,
and she was the details, right? The details always matter. Yeah. She was very granular. She was nitty gritty throughout that process, trying to improve our AR. It wasn't just let's, repetitiously hit this. It was like, who are you going to call? Yeah. When are you going to call them? When you call them, what are you going to say? Should there be a meeting instead of a phone call?
Yeah.
What's the timing of all this? And it was very deliberate from ground up, each actionable step that built that success. And there was points where Sam was pulling his hair out. And rightfully so. We weren't used to that. Yeah, we weren't used to that level of detail. And so she would always come back around and say, I know we can do better. I know you guys are, you're better than you think you are. We're going to ace this. And with that encouragement, with that, and again, coming from somebody that's so open and honest in themselves anyways, you believe it. You're there. You're with them.
She made you feel as though you could be better than you were. Even if you knew it inside and you didn't want to believe it, she believed it, and she pushed you towards that. Yep. And that was what a lot of people really kind of, I think, lean towards. They liked that. They like to know that somebody's got their back and that they have faith in you and that you can do it, even if you don't believe it yourself. So
that's exactly it.
Yeah, well, I think the word that came out from that I just wrote down was unrelenting. And you guys have kind of talked about it in different ways. And Ryan, you said that word. And I think I, not too long ago, we were with a client doing some consulting work, and the senior VP of sales was just frustrated. And he said, I just get frustrated with, I'm sending out movie clips. I'm making these recommendations. We're buying books. I'm sending podcasts. I'm doing all this. And then I'll say, hey, Sam, did you listen to this? Or Ryan, did you watch that thing I sent you? And if they're like, oh, no, I didn't, and he's like, I just get frustrated. I said, forget it. Why do I do this? And I said, from an emotional standpoint, I completely understand.
Yeah.
But I said, I would also challenge you to think about, you're playing the long game. And maybe if you're just unrelenting, if you're just sending this barrage and it's coming out every week, you're just being you. You're catching a lot of stuff. You're a reader. You watch movies. You're watching YouTube for new clips on how to be more patient and better listening skills. Like, continue to send it out. And even if they only watch or consume or read 10% of it, you are still demonstrating what you want to see more of. And they're going to be better than they are now. So I'm like, Don't take it personal. Everybody's busy, but also I think that's one way to lead. And that sounds like the relentlessness, just to continue to grind on it is another thing you said. I have to ask about this is one of you guys, I don't know who wrote this. Kate had a fondness for critiquing internal communications, emails, memos, presentations. As someone who I know for a fact, I have this tendency, I have a little OCD around word choice, typography, design, and these emails will occasionally come in and I will take a deep breath. And normally I'll ask my wife / colleague who I work with, who's right outside these doors, and I'll say, basically, if I have to respond to this, is it too much? And she always says, if you're asking me, the answer is yes. So I have to know, how did Kate do this and what was its effect on the business?
Oh, boy. So I like to phrase this as, this is centered around a part that I like to call pulling the company out of the Wild West. That's my phrase.
Okay.
We have some older line people on the team that aren't the most computer savvy. Yeah. And I think the industry's full of people like that.
Correct.
Emails would be sloppy, haphazard. Communication can be messy. And to her credit, and the point is right, the company can only gain by having a more efficient communication structure. So we can increase speed, reduce mistakes if we're more deliberate and careful about how we communicate. She really believed that. But to the degree, I'd email her something, and she would send it back, highlight the items in red, whether it was word choice. She always caught me on my misuse of rather, or rather. Things like that, punctuation. So she would constantly do that. She would email back, or if she caught you around the office, she'd just say, hey, you should have really done this instead of that. And then a lot of it was on the process. It was, beyond just playing spelling teacher. I think it was when to reply all, when to not reply all, when to copy, when to blind copy, and a lot of those functions, and really thinking through it. And those topics were big parts of manager meetings and staff meetings for a long time.
Yep.
And it did help. And again, she was relentless with it. She would not stop until you got better.
Well, I had this conversation recently. It had me thinking about this, where the owner was all in on having us in as a consultant. And there were some guys who'd been around a long time, really talented, very smart people who were very candid and direct, which is the way I would have preferred it, that they weren't interested in having me around. They're not interested in change. And quite frankly, they've been doing really well. And the one guy used this phrase. He says, what you're trying to do is you're trying to change what we are unconsciously competent at. And he said, there's a risk in that. We are unconsciously competent. We don't know why. We're just good. And we've been good for a long time. And if you come in and meddle with it, and I listened and I said, you do not know how much more I disagree with that entire sentiment. Because if you don't know why you're good at something, when something goes wrong, it's hard to then reverse course to change. And it sounds like she was saying, hey, we got a lot of talented people. There might be this level of unconscious competence. Well, guess what? I want us to be really conscious about how we're good and how we do it and how we get better over time.
Yeah.
Does that sound right?
That sounds right.
Sounds right.
Without a
Yeah.
doubt. That was always the mentality.
Yep.
I want to learn more about the showroom, because one thing that I believe, and I think there's some really good examples, but not nearly enough, of the future of our industry of LBM dealers and how we provide value, is having a center place where people want to come in and they get ideas and they'll have different talent available. And it's a way to almost bring people in as kind of a, maybe a third or a fourth space. They used to call, Starbucks the third space. It's not home, it's not work, right? Well, if I'm a contractor, it's not my office, it's not at the bar, it's not Starbucks. Can I come here to meet talented people who have a passion, give new ideas that just being there will reinvigorate me and bring new energy and new ideas? It sounds very much like what you guys are building. That was kind of Kate's vision for the showroom. Sam, let me ask you first. Give me the seed for that and how long ago that came to be, and kind of maybe where it stands now.
I think she wanted to grow us more into a professional space as well. We're very much cowboy sometime in the fact that, yes, we have a hardware side, but when it comes to the building materials, we're kind of just shoot from the hip with the contractors for a long time. And she wanted to be able to put a more polished edge on it, to be able to have a place where homeowners could go sit down with contractors or a designer from our company, and in a comfortable, really nice, clean environment, sit down and work through all their decisions, to be able to see some higher end product, to have a higher class of professionalism, and just an all-around higher tier than what we have consistently offered, in a way to grow us, but also to push us to do better. So in that regard, I think that was her main vision for it. And in some way, she also wanted to help our community by allowing to have a space like that for people to come to our community for that better quality customer service material, to be able to grow our community in that regard and make it be, to add one more thing, to make it be more of a destination than it currently is.
Yeah.
And in that regard, she was really, kind of became her project, and in doing so became all of our projects. So
yeah, one of the things she'd said to me about the showroom towards the beginning was, do you know how many people go outside of our county for these products that we're not showcasing? And all that money leaves our area. We need to bring that money back to our community to bolster our community, and we could add jobs and employ some skilled people from around the area, and it would be a win-win. Yeah. And so even within that statement itself that she said to me, it's always about the people. It's about the community. We're seeing a need, and therefore, if we fulfill that need, it should be a promising business prospect, but it started with the people.
And in that regard, it's the same way that she always looked out, not just for the company, how can we make the company better, but every single person around her, how can we make them better at the same time?
Yep.
And that was a consistent thing for her. So,
yeah, holistic, the
Yeah.
entire approach with the
Yeah.
project. And so the showroom right now is close to finishing the construction. We're getting the siding on here shortly, and we've got a little bit of a lead time on some of the millwork items and things we've ordered to furnish it. Go figure.
Go figure.
But when it's done, it's going to be quite gorgeous, might I say.
Yeah.
But not in a pompous way. We're not in a very affluent market, so we wanted it to be both inspiring on the higher end of finishes for people that can afford it, but also not to be intimidating to the people that can't. And so it is still going to have a grassroots feel to it, where we're homeowners, contractors, regardless of income level, they can come in and get assistance. So we're pretty excited about it. It's going to be great.
Yeah,
it's exciting. I want to ask you about something that you guys mentioned Kate did consistently and she did it very easily. It kind of came natural to her, but I think for a lot of folks, it doesn't. And I think this is one of these things that this is a skill that certainly for me, I want to improve upon. And I'll give a quick little story here. One of our clients, woman who's kind of a real key leader, her husband passed away somewhat unexpectedly. And as she was kind of transitioning back to work, it was around the holidays, and she was kind of in this kind of a little bit of a fog. And it was maybe a month after the funeral. I'd reached out to her, was just chatting with her, and I said, "How's everyone doing?" She said, "Overall doing well," but she's like, "I feel like some of the folks around here, all they're trying to do is just give me a lot of space." And she's like, "I don't need space now. I need to re-engage." And she's like, "It's like they just don't know how to talk to me anymore about what happened or what I'm going to say." And I said, "I'm pretty sure that's exactly what they're doing, because they're dudes and they have no idea what to say. And they're trying to give you space, but they don't know how to bring it up. And they think it might be an awkward situation, so they're going to leave it alone." I'm like, me included. That's what, you mentioned meatheads earlier. That's what us meatheads do.
That's right.
And I said, "I think you're going to have to help them." But I said, "Also me." I said, "I feel bad. It's been a month, but I didn't really know." She's like, "I know." She's like, "You're a dude." And I said, "Yeah." She said, "I know." She's like, "Guys often don't know how to check in well." And she's like, "That's what we should be doing, checking in more effectively with other people." And that's something that you said Kate did very well.
Yeah.
And I get a little choked up when I think about Kate going through what she's going through, yet checking in with other people and saying, "Well, how are you? Let's not talk about me. Don't worry about me. How are you doing? Let's talk about you." How did she do that? How did she effectively and appropriately check in with you despite everything you guys were going through, obviously everything that she was going through as well?
Right after she got the news that she had the cancer back, she took a little bit of time. But after that, she was right back in it. She never really backed off the business. She stayed in it. She was going to do both fights at the same time. But even before then, we had 2 other employees in the year before her death pass away as well, also from cancer. And she would talk to them regularly to see how they're doing, checking up on them. I mean, that's a good example of it.
I'm going to go back to that word, unrelenting. She didn't stop. She never stopped. I mean, just how she did it, on one side of that question, I have no clue. She had something in her that was rare and unique, and there was no stopping it. The other side of that question, it was just how she was. She'd walk around and she was mindful. She was present. When people talked to her, she was paying attention. You knew she was listening. And how she found the time to do it all, no idea. But when you talked to her, you were the only thing she was focused on in that moment.
Yeah.
And then she would surprise you at a random moment with a text or an email or something of "Hey, I was thinking about you and about this other thing." And it could be non-business related, completely personal. And I was thinking about this thing and I just wanted to tell you such and such. And so even when she wasn't around, you still knew that you were in her thoughts.
Yeah. And it'd be the most random thing too. Like,
Yeah,
not even
something you would
not even something necessarily work related, but something that she just heard you talking about.
Yeah,
that you thought nothing of. It was a throwaway comment, and it would be something about that.
And even to the last days, it was, I had gone to see her, a few days or maybe a week before her passing. And the only thing she wanted to talk about was me, which was horrible. But, you don't forget that. And that's the way she was with everybody. It was a lasting, positive impact on everybody that she was around. If you were her people, you were her people. She didn't stop thinking about you. She didn't stop fighting for you.
She always wanted the best for you.
Yeah. That's it.
And what could she do to help you get there?
Yep.
And she'd push. She'd be unrelenting to get you there, but it was because she cared.
Yeah. It's incredible.
I can't think of a better way to describe a leader, someone who always thinking about their people, always thinking about what they can do for them personally and professionally, but also kind of hearkening back to what you said earlier about just constantly challenging you and saying, I know, I see it. You guys can be better. We just got to get there together, And I think I look at the kind of the mentors in my life or the people that have most impacted me are the ones that have said, I know you can't see it, but I do. I can see what you're capable of, and you're not even coming close.
Yeah.
And I think this is really important. And I want to help you get there. When you get people like that in your life, I think they're so impactful. And the reason we're doing this episode about Kate is because they're special. They're different. There's a lot of people who are thinking, just trying to get through life and worry about myself and then my own family. And
right.
Dude, it's a dog-eat-dog world. You got to take care of yourself. No one else is going to. And just her attitude is 180 degrees different.
Yeah, without a doubt. And
not enough people like that in the world.
No,
there aren't. So it makes it hard when somebody close to you who is like that passes away. But I mean, every single person here is better for that. So for having known her,
this company is where it's at because of her. We're in a better place. Yeah, and whew.
She's made us better people for it too.
Yeah,
to be able to continue that for her in her absence.
Yeah, I would say we're both more confident leading this company, better equipped, and that's due to her.
Yeah,
and her influence on us, pushing us to grow beyond what we thought we were capable of.
Not just necessarily pushing us, but teaching us why she pushed us, teaching us how to push others in the same way that she pushed us.
Yeah.
She made us better leaders by being the model for us to follow. And I'm just thankful for it.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways.
Yep. So. And the whole team, they felt that way, the community. I mean, the impacts she made on the community around us, our customers.
Yeah.
It's like its own little village here. And to see it shut down, you've made impacts on a lot of people.
Yeah.
Well, gentlemen, appreciate your time here. This is, I think it's been something that we collectively really wanted to do for a long time, yet also really didn't want to do for a long time because I knew how much of an impact Kate has made in our lives. And I think maybe the last question I will leave you both with is, if Kate had 2 billboards, one for you, Ryan, one for you, Sam, what would her message be that she would want front and center for you and everyone else in our industry and everyone else in our communities to remember?
For me, it would be present. Be present in the moment with the people you're with.
I would say you're so much more than you think you are. Keep pushing for that.
Well, I think both of those, I was lucky enough to have our paths cross. And for both my wife and I, just feel blessed to have been around her. And, this is someone, I think you think about impact. I never met her face to face. And a lot of our communication was over Instagram. We talked on the phone a few times. And I think that's also a message there of what an impact you can make on people's lives obviously that you see every day, but also people that are just in the same industry and might live, a couple thousand miles away. So, gentlemen, I think you guys, your mindset, your leadership, it's a testament to what she's built and her legacy. And I wish you guys well. I'm going to figure out a way. When you guys get the showroom open, I'm going to figure out a way to come up at some point. And
we'd love that.
We'd love to check it out. But, gentlemen, thank you very much. And obviously, thank you to Kate.
Yeah. Bradley, thank you. We appreciate the opportunity to honor her in this way. So,
yes, thank you.
As always, my friends, thank you for listening. If you are interested in making a donation to Kate Whittemore's memory, she would like you to do that through Tracy's Hope. That is Tracy with an I, TRACI''S, Hope. You can just Google Tracy's Hope. As for me, that's all I've got. Just recommend that you just take an extra minute or two today to make sure the people that you love the most, make sure they know that. And sometimes times get crazy. We get busy and we sometimes lose sight of what the most important thing is. And maybe people know it, but it always helps to hear that. So whether that's your kids or your friends, your parents, etc., life is a tricky thing and tomorrow is not guaranteed to any of us. And being largely a sales podcast, maybe that's the call to action. We always have to have a call to action, don't we? Well, maybe that's it here. Just take an extra minute or two and let the people around you know that you really love them. Before we go, I want to thank Capital One Trade Credit for bringing you this episode. That, my friends, is all we've got. Thank you for listening. We're going to close out like we always do. You, my friend, are owed nothing. Deliver value first.